With Erling Haaland and Mo Salah being by far and away the most expensive players in the game, a lot of managers are making the decision of which one they have to have in their Game Week 1 teams. But in today's video, I'm going to show you a Salah and Haaland draft that I actually think works, as well as a draft without both of the premiums. You're going to make sure you stick around for these drafts because they are pretty tasty. So as always, if you are looking forward to today's video, make sure to drop a like and of course hit that subscribe button if you are new around here. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So rightly so, both of these players have been priced as the most expensive players in each of their positions. Erling Haaland coming in at 14 million off the back of what is a disappointing season for him. It was still good enough for most forwards. Coming in at 14, the second most expensive player, of course, is Ollie Watkins at 9 million. So managers are having to invest 5 million more than the second most expensive forward. Now, of course, we do have some exciting players coming into the Premier League, like Gyökeres and Ekitike, maybe some others. So we could see them price closer to Haaland, but I wouldn't be surprised if he remains by far and away the most expensive forward. And in terms of Mo Salah, the same situation. Slightly more expensive at 14.5 million. The next most expensive being Cole Palmer at 10.5 million. So again, if you want to own one of these two players, you are having to pay over the odds compared to the next best alternative. And like I said, Watkins isn't exactly a bad option. Cole Palmer isn't exactly a bad option. But historically, these two, we felt like we needed at least one of these in our teams. And of course, looking at the opening fixtures, because if both of these had terrible fixtures, you definitely would make the argument to go without them. I would argue that having coverage in the Man City team or Liverpool attack is pretty damn important. When we take a look at Man City, against the Wolves team that of course lost both Aït-Nouri and Cunha, that could be a weakened Wolves team. Then we have Spurs, Brighton, Man United, Arsenal in Game Week 5 is difficult, and then Burnley at home in Game Week 6. With the return of Rodri and some decent investments like Cherki in the attacking areas, and also a second season for somebody like Marmoush, I personally am anticipating Man City be a lot better this season. So Man City attackers do feel important over this period. I do feel like they are going to be a better version of what we saw last year. And in terms of Liverpool, a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the fixtures. Bournemouth at home in Game Week 1, which I do think is a good fixture. They've lost, of course, their best defender last year, and it looks like they might be losing Zabarnyi as well to PSG. If they don't invest well, that could prove to be a great game for Liverpool. Then Newcastle away, followed by Arsenal at home. Again, do I feel like we need Liverpool assets in these two games? Probably not. But then Burnley, Everton and Palace in the following fixtures. Again, the fixtures start to swing towards having Liverpool players. Now, the one thing I will say is, of course, in years gone by, I don't feel like at Liverpool there has been a trusted attacking option that we could actually go against Mo Salah with. And at Man City, it has been basically Erling Haaland or nobody. Yes, we did have that Phil Foden season, but I think everybody knew that Haaland was still the big guy that you wanted in that attack. This season, I think, slightly different. We got Marmoush coming in as a midfielder at Man City at 8.5 million. That is absolutely a consideration for managers out there, especially if he does play in central areas. And at Liverpool, we have got Florian Wirtz coming in at 8.5 million, who is going to be a really interesting prospect. If he hits the heights that we are anticipating, he could potentially be an alternative to Mo Salah. So I'm going to show you a Mo Salah and Erling Haaland draft, as well as a no Haaland and Salah draft, to show you exactly what you can and can't afford with both of these players. But let me know in the comment section, do you think Marmoush can cover Haaland or Wirtz can cover Mo Salah? And if that is the case, which one of these two would you go for? So first up, let me show you the Mo Salah and Erling Haaland FPL draft, because as I mentioned, I think a lot of people have already ruled this sort of team out, and I totally understand why, because as we spoke about, 28.5 million of a budget already invested in two players, with many other great value players in the game. But I just want to make sure managers do appreciate what you can afford, and maybe this is something that you are interested in. So let's talk about the pros and the cons firstly. The pros, you get the two best players in the game in Mo Salah and Erling Haaland. And having two of those players means that each and every game week you have a captaincy option that you can go for, that you don't really have to take risks on. If Mo Salah blanks or Erling Haaland blanks, then I do feel like you have not necessarily gotten unlucky, but you have gone for the optimal play nonetheless. If you were to go without one of these two and the other one has a tricky game, then you are scrambling a little bit to which player you can truly trust as a captaincy pick. So having those two is a massive benefit. And I would argue that even though you have these two players, you still can afford an 8.5 million midfielder like a Florian Wirtz. You can have a 7.5 million forward like a João Pedro. And you can have a premium defender in the shape of someone like Gabriel. So it isn't like we have these two premiums and then we have basically got 4.5 million players across the board after that. I still think you can have some sort of ownership in players in each position. And I don't think the team looks as bad as what managers are possibly making out it can do. We can have a 5 million defender in the shape of someone like Colwell, two 4.5 million defenders, and then a 4 million defender. That is a very standard FPL kind of structure in the defense, which I don't mind at all. The 5 million defender really important because it will allow us to pivot up to a 5.5 million if one were to emerge. And I don't think as many managers are desperate to have two 6 million defenders this season, but maybe things will change. I think the big sacrifice here with this team, of course, is you can't get yourself really to someone like a Cole Palmer unless you make huge sacrifices in your team. Salah plus Haaland plus Palmer is a stretch too far. I've tried it and you really do have to just take all of the money out of this team. So you are going without Cole Palmer. However, if João Pedro can replicate what we saw in the Club World Cup, I don't think he can match Cole Palmer, but at the expense of keeping Salah and Haaland, João Pedro could be fantastic value at 7.5 million as a forward in the game. And I do think there are some okay budget options available. For example, in the 4.5 million defender department, I think Konsa, I think Udogie, I think Gay are all really nice alternatives that we can consider for our teams. And even someone like a Beto at 5.5 million, yes, there could be some rotation there, but if Beto does continue what we saw last season and is the number one man for David Moyes, I see no reason why Beto isn't a consideration for our teams. Also, Ndiaye is worth a mention in that Everton midfield as well. The big problems, of course, we spoke about, no Cole Palmer, and the lack of flexibility that we can go elsewhere in each position. But I do think it is clear that a team can be afforded. But I am a little bit worried that it's too much money invested that we are then kind of locked in. You can't get yourself up to a Cole Palmer, to a Bukayo Saka, these important players in the game. And also, if someone like an Ollie Watkins and Alexander Isak were to really do well, you would then have to sacrifice somebody like an Erling Haaland in your team to get there. And then straight away, you have kind of pivoted from this sort of draft. All in all, I think it is too much money invested in Mo Salah and Erling Haaland, especially when we do have some great alternatives available to us in the game. But I think managers do need to consider this sort of draft if you want to just go for the big boys early on and then downgrade from the one that you deem not important in the game. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I don't think it's as bad as what people are making out. But what I do want to show you is the complete alternative. A team without Mo Salah and Erling Haaland to show you what you can do with your drafts. So here we have a draft without Mo Salah and Erling Haaland. Now, I know a lot of managers do not even entertain this sort of draft, but I think it is really important to understand what is available to you if you were to go without two of the most expensive players in the game. Because as we discussed, there is an opportunity this season and a potential where maybe Marmoush is actually the better value pick in that Man City team. And also somebody like a Florian Wirtz is a better alternative than Mo Salah. I also want to drop Phil Foden in the mix. That is somebody who could actually progress with De Bruyne now not in the squad. So just running through the team right now and the slight differences on what we had in the previous draft. We can afford a slightly more expensive goalkeeper, someone like a Robert Sanchez. You can even tweak this team to get yourself to the 5.5 million goalkeepers. That isn't even a consideration if you do go with Mo Salah and Haaland. You really do have to sacrifice your goalkeeper. And I think Sanchez, the 5 million goalkeepers aren't too bad this season. I still think the 4 million goalkeeper is the way to go as a rotation option. In terms of the defenders, we can go a bit more premium. Whereas before we had 6 million Gabriel straight down to a 5 million, we can accommodate somebody like a Gabriel. We can go for another person like a Kirkes, but that could easily be a Van Dijk, that could be a Frimpong, that could be a Cucurella. And we can also have a 5.5 million option in Pedro Porro. Again, we had your doggy in the previous one, but Porro might actually be the more attacking influence in that Thomas Frank team. 4.5 million, take your pick from Konsa, Wan-Bissaka, Mark Gahey, and then I still think the 4 million defender is the way to go, whatever draft you are building, unless of course it is a bench boost, then it might be different. So straight away with the defenders, we can afford more premiums, which will then allow us to be more flexible. If we want to pivot our team and put more money in the forwards, I could downgrade Pedro Porro to a 4.5, take the 1 million and invest that in someone like a Dominic Solanke and upgrade that position if we needed to. In terms of the midfielders, of course, we don't have the high price point of Mo Salah, so you've got to have the next most expensive in Cole Palmer. Of course, that is the big absentee alongside Saka that we can't have in that draft that I showed you previously. Then we have to have our Haaland and Salah alternatives, and that is going to be Florian Wirtz and Marmoush. Now, again, we are taking a mega punt with Wirtz that he is going to hit the ground running, but I'm going to be honest with you. Going into game week 1, I am very bullish on Wirtz. I really do think that he is built for the Premier League, and what I have seen, I don't see any reason why he is going to take time to transition into the Premier League tempo. The only thing I'm a little bit cautious about is maybe Slot just has many different tactical tweaks that he can do to this team, especially with the signing of Ekitike. I don't know if Wirtz is going to play 90 minutes each and every game while he does adapt to the league. So the problem is, if you go without Mo Salah, who you know is going to play 90 minutes in all of those opening games, if your alternative is Wirtz and he's playing 60, 30, 60 until he really does cement himself as the number one guy, that could be a painful period if Mo Salah is bagging braces each and every game. So just be cautious of that. It allows us, as I've spoken about, to have Marmoush. Again, a bit more proven than Florian Wirtz as he had last season. And I do think he will pick up some great positions in that City team. But I want to see it first and foremost. What is the influence of Foden and Cherki going to do? But I think Marmoush at 8.5 million is the one that could be an unbelievable alternative to Erling Haaland. We can still afford a 7 million in Rodgers. I think he's fantastic this year. And we can go 6.5 million with Kudu. So we're getting rid of that 4.5 million midfielder. And we are really going for some powerhouses in that midfield 5. Now up front, it's allowed us to afford the second most expensive forward in Ollie Watkins. Apologies, the third most expensive because, of course, Alexander Isak is 10.5 million. And I do think Isak is a consideration for this team. And if you wanted to pivot to him, very simply, you would just downgrade Pedro Porro to a 4.5 like Udogi, and then you would take a bit of money out of the goalkeeper and put that up to Alexander Isak. But in order to afford a really well-rounded team, and with all the speculation with Isak, as of right now, I am going to avoid him, and we're going to go for Ollie Watkins, as I do think he is a fantastic option this season. Then we got João Pedro at 7.5 million, and we got Dominic Solanke at 7.5. But again, with the flexibility of this team, if you're sat there right now thinking, no, you got to upgrade one of those to an 8.5 or another 9 million, then we can easily do so with the flexibility that this team allows us. So I think it's really brave going into game week 1 without one of Mo Salah or Erling Haaland, but I think you can see here that you can build a fantastic, well-rounded team that can get you through those opening game weeks. The problem is, in those teams that you're investing in, Man City and Liverpool, if he doesn't play, if Marmoush gets integrated once again, and Haaland and Salah play the 90 minutes that we're anticipating, it could be painful. So even though I love this team, and I do think you can get real high benefits and rewards, I still think having one of Mo Salah and Haaland is the play. And as of right now, I still feel like Mo Salah is the man that I would pick out of the two premiums, and maybe take a punt on Marmoush or squeezing in Wirtz and thinking he is going to hit the ground running. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section on this draft. Yes, guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up today's video looking at Mo Salah and Erling Haaland. Are they worth having in your teams as a pair? Maybe just one of each or neither. Hopefully this video has given you a bit of an idea on what you can do with your teams. And of course, let me know in the comment section exactly what your thoughts are on the two most expensive players in the game. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider dropping a like, and of course, hitting that subscribe button. Daily videos come in throughout this preseason, so do not worry, I've got you covered this year. Have an amazing day, take care, and I'll see you real soon. Cheers.